Make a donut. Project a picture of the donut on the donut. It's a donut. Make the frosting its own donut material and run a random output from an object. And every time you duplicate the donut, it's a new donut. Turn the donuts into a collection called donuts. 50,000 donuts. Realize that nothing will ever be as perfect as the worlds we create in our imagination. Import the tutorial on a plane. You just made a tutorial in Blender. Create some sort of corridor digitally. It's a museum. It's very popular until some guru walked in and drew prices all over everything. Sir, this is a museum. This is for the public, for posterity. Please, you have to leave now. Take a picture of a donut.
Oh. This is weird. This is becoming a thing. But that's hilarious. Check out Ian's channel, guys, if you haven't already. He does lazy tutorials, these 60-second things, and they're amazing. So links in the description if you haven't checked it out already. I'm sure you have. But he also directed a little film. Not many of you know this, but he directed a little film called Tears of Steel, which was a little something that the... I don't know, Blender Institute did a little while back, but he knows what he's doing, so he's hilarious, and go subscribe to his channel. This tutorial series is brought to you by Polygon. Make better renders faster. Welcome back. In this video, we're going to turn this water into coffee. So, first of all, let's... you know, if we were to change this liquid here, we'd also be changing the same material for the plate and the glass because they're all sharing the exact same material here. So with the liquid selected, give it a new material by hitting that little number that was next to it. Oh, what happened there? Move that over. There we go. And then I'm going to call this coffee. So these two are sharing the same glass, and then this one is just called coffee. Okay, now you would think that the way to change the color of a liquid would be to just like take the base color and just give it something else, right? And it works. Or does it? It does work, but you'll notice that, you know, it doesn't look that realistic, right? Something's not quite right about it. It almost looks like, you know, it's made of like really, really diluted light cordial. I don't know if that's an Australian thing, cordial. But, you know, like... I don't know, the juice that's like really concentrated and then you add water to it, you give it to kids, it's just full of sugar. It looks like that, right? There's no, it looks too light. And the reason that it looks too light is that what this is doing is it's not behaving like real liquid does. If you've ever stood in a lake or gone swimming in a lake, you'll probably notice that like you can see your hands in the water, but then as they go through the water, they eventually disappear into darkness. And that is because there is particles in the water, and the more depth your hand goes through the water, so many particles that it basically all the light is removed and you can no longer see your hands. Well, it's the exact same thing that's happening with liquid, right? What this is doing, this base color, all it's doing is it's basically changing the color of the surface of the material, which isn't even possible for glass. Like you can't just change the color. Like it'd be almost like if the glass was painted with like a translucent paint. That's what this is doing right now. What you want is you want that depth, okay? So the way you do it is not to change this color at all, okay? We're gonna leave that at pure white. What we need to do is down here, underneath volume, we're gonna add some volume to it. Okay, so volume is that, it's that depth. It's adding little tiny invisible particles to the inside of your object so that it will, it'll go through. Things will disappear as it goes through. Anyway, so underneath volume, click that little thing that says none, and you get all the different shading types here. There's only two that'll actually work in the volume slot, so I don't know why it's showing all this. The only two is volume, unless I'm mistaken. Oh, I guess also principled volume. Volume absorption and volume scatter. Scatter is used for things like clouds where like light just sort of like passes through it and like bounces through it and it kind of just retains its brightness. Absorption is where things like get darker as light goes through it. So that is the one that we want. By the way, this material section here, you'll remember like when we were doing the donut, if you went to the shading tab and we zoomed out here, you still have the nodes here, right? So this is actually what you've just created, like through doing this in the panel, right? Where did all that stuff go? By doing it through the panel, it just added in these nodes here. So you've got your principled shader, which is like the appearance of the liquid. And then this one here is being plugged into a new part of the material separate to everything else called volume, okay? But, we don't actually need all this complexity in the nodes. We're just fine with what we've got here. Okay, now when you add this volume absorption, nothing's really changed because the density of 1 is really, really low. If you were to increase this, you would see, you start to get the kind of the look of like when your hand is in a lake, right? The higher you set this to, you'll see that eventually we can't really see the bottom of the glass. In fact, let me just go from camera view. Let me move the camera up just slightly. I'm just gonna look down. You don't have to copy this, by the way. I'm just doing this so that I can Control B. If you hold down Control B and drag over it when you're in camera mode, that will add a basically like a window, like a small little window, so that you can render a lot faster than if it was like full screen. Anyway, I'm just doing that so that I can show you this depth of this liquid here. Okay, so this is what it looked like with nothing there. So you're seeing like straight through right to the bottom of the glass, and then the higher you set that to, the darker it becomes, like so. Okay, now. Looking at this, we want this to obviously look like coffee, okay? So looking at a real photo of coffee, I'm actually got a reference photo here that I'm going to load up just to show you. If I can find it. Where did I save it? There it is. Okay. Real coffee looks like this. So it's got a kind of a orangey, yellowy tint to it. So what color would you actually set this to? You might go like, okay, orangey, dark, like that. Well, actually, you don't need to put any darkness into this value here because the volume, this density, that's what's going to give it the darkness. So you can actually make this like fully bright, like 100% value, whatever, right? And then your saturation, you also want that to be bright as well. I guess you probably do need to have some darkness to it or else it's maybe not going to work at all. So don't go 100% value. You got to have a little bit of darkness to it. Otherwise, maybe that's a bug, but like the density just won't work without it. So anyway, then yeah, you don't actually want to give it the orange color either. You want to give it just the tip of, you can see the very tip of that. It's like a lightish yellow color. Okay, so when you do this, you give it a lightish yellow color. The density is what's going to actually make it multiply and become this hue from, light yellow to orange and then to darkness. Because that's basically the way the light's working is it's going to yellow and then the yellow light is then reflecting into other particles, which is also yellow, and then it's making it more yellow until it becomes orange and then red and then finally to pure darkness. So giving it yellow and then just increasing the density until it starts to look like coffee. And actually, it can probably be helpful if you make your plane white, because that can actually help you to see the color. Yeah, that's pretty good. So that is the one. That's the value that I'm going to go with. So all that was to essentially say, like, keep this the same, the principled thing, keep that the same, and just add one volume absorption section, make it yellow, and then set the density to around 700, 800. By the way, these values here, like coffee isn't even consistent in color, depending on what coffee you use, depending on what strength you use. If you're my wife, you use like a really, really super weak, like, I don't know, a density of 200, might as well be tea. Or, you could be the sort of person that has an espresso. One of those Italians, crazy Italians, sitting outside the cafes all day, just sipping on these. What's the point of enjoying a coffee if it's that small? That's my point, right? Just make it a little bigger and just enjoy it a little bit, but not too big, right? Don't wash it out, but just don't condense it. I don't know. Just do what I want, okay? Everyone should enjoy coffee the same way as me. But anyways, that's it. That was pretty simple tutorial. It's just adding like one node to make it look like coffee. But yeah, the next video we're going to be UV unwrapping this cup so that we can add condensation droplets, a texture to that. So learning a lot in the next video. So click here, and I will see you there.